A lot of players have come and gone in the past 10 years. Some began to leave a mark on the game. Some showed continued dominance. Some completely left the game. Today, we're going to be ranking the top 10 players in this decade. What is up, dudes, dudettes, ballers, players? It's your boy MJ. With all these all-decade teams and with the decade ending, I thought it would be a pretty good time to look at all of what has happened in the past 10 years. The good and the bad. And then rank these players. This video took me a really long time to make, to look into about 20 players' careers for 10 years. But if you like this type of content and want to see more of this series, drop a like. If we hit 12,329, I'll do this for the 2000s. The NBA 2K20 demo is coming out tomorrow, so I'll be streaming that on my second channel as soon as it does. And if you're part of the 74% that watch my videos that still aren't subscribed, the players in here are really great. So please subscribe. Oftentimes, we remember what happened recently over what happened 10 years ago and give it more importance. It's the recency bias, and so players like Giannis, who have done a lot in the last 2 years with an MVP, making all NBA teams and defensive teams, may seem like they are better than some of these other players in the early 2010s. But this is over a 10-year span from 2009 to 2019. The 2009-2010 season is included because that leads to the first finals of this decade in 2010. Sometimes what a player has done in 4 years is actually more than what other players have done in 10. It just depends on what they did and comparing that to other players in the league at the time. To start, I want to try and filter out players down to about 13. Accomplishments aren't everything, and of course context is really important when it comes to comparing players, but this was a filter. I was able to compile all these players' accomplishments, but because players had different awards, there was no way to really compare them equally. If you saw my community post, I was trying to give a point value to each award and then add up the points to give each player a total score. Once again, this isn't used to rank players, and as you'll see, some players with lower points are ranked higher than those with higher points. It's just a filter to narrow down the list. So here is the point list that I came up with for each award. I changed some things thanks to your suggestions as well. Other factors like finals appearances, stat averages, record-breaking events, certain performances, and longevity aren't awards, but are part of context when ranking players, so they will be considered. Awards themselves can also have circumstances surrounding them, like the All-NBA team having positions, meaning that players like LeBron, Durant, Kawhi, and Davis are fighting for the same 2 spots on the first team, but could all be top 5 players in the league that same season. Remember, this ranks stars and superstars, not all players. Role players like Patrick McCaw might have more points than someone like Carmelo Anthony because McCaw has 3 championships, but that doesn't mean that he was a better player. This is where your common sense comes in. So any player under 30 points was automatically filtered out. I made an Excel sheet that is public for all of you to see their stats and awards and the total points. It's in the description so you guys can check it out. Alright, to start things off, number 10 is the Brow, Anthony Davis. Now there were other players in consideration like Dwyane Wade, Giannis, and Paul George, but Anthony Davis has been playing at a high level for 6 years. He has played at an MVP level for 3 years, finishing top 5 in MVP voting twice. Davis has 3 first-team All-NBA selections, 2 second-team All-NBA selections, along with 1 first-team All-Defense and 2 second-team All-Defense. Davis has averaged 23.7 points and 10.5 rebounds this decade since 2012. He's led the league in blocks 3 times. You've seen him have a block party. And although he hasn't won Defensive Player of the Year, he has finished top 3 in voting for Defensive Player of the Year. AD could be higher on this list if he had a championship or an MVP, but he has only been in the league for 7 years and hasn't hit his prime age. He's had 2 seasons of averaging over 28 points and 11 rebounds. Paul George falls short of AD's accolades. Giannis has only been doing this at a high level for 3 seasons, but is without a championship that would really put him over Davis for this decade, and Wade, although he has the championships and played really well in the 2011 finals, he lacks individual accolades, only having one All-NBA first team selection and no defensive team selections. Wade is heavily considered for this 10th spot specifically for his role in the playoffs as the second star for 3 finals runs and 2 championships. All other players had lower total points based on the award value system, and Anthony Davis is a generational talent that simply has been doing this for just long enough to squeak into the list. Now this player might be a surprise, but at number 9 is Dwight Howard. Yeah, I know, the player most Lakers fans are dreading right now. But let's not forget what Dwight Howard did in the beginning of this decade. He won 2 straight Defensive Player of the Years in 2010-2011. He made 3 All-NBA first teams, a rebounding leader, block leader, led the league in field goal percentage for a year, 3 first team All-Defense, all between 2010 and 2012. Dwight was something else. In total for 10 years, he had 2 more rebounding leaders, 1 All-NBA second team and 1 All-NBA third team. Even in his quote-unquote bad year on the Lakers, Dwight averaged 17.1 points and 12.4 rebounds playing with a torn shoulder. As much as Dwight has been the laughingstock of the NBA, he averaged 17.4 points and 12.7 rebounds on 59% from the field over the past 10 years. His best season in 2011, he averaged 22.9 points and 14.1 rebounds. In his 8 years of the playoffs, he has averaged 17.8 points and 12.8 rebounds. All these stats are really good. Dwight's decline from his peak in 2010-2011 was slow. That's why Dwight took this spot over a guy like Anthony Davis. Both Dwight and Davis have 3 first team selections, but Dwight also does have 2 Defensive Player of the Years, making him one of only 10 players in NBA history to have multiple Defensive Player of the Years. And Dwight has more first team all defensive selections. Because Davis doesn't have significant playoff success despite averaging 30.5 points and 13.4 rebounds in 13 playoff games, there just isn't enough to override the dominance that Dwight Howard showed. It may not be Davis's fault that he never had that great of a team or the fact that he got drafted in 2012, but because Dwight didn't just fall off and instead had great and then good and then solid seasons, his peak in 2012 was enough to get him this number 9 spot. At number 8 is Kobe Bean Bryant. I'm honestly surprised that he made the list, let alone number 8. Kinda fitting though, but after looking at what he did, it makes sense. Kobe has 1 championship, a finals MVP, 4 All-NBA first team selections, 2 first team all-defensive selections, 1 second team all-defense selection, with an average of 24.7 points and 5.1 assists for 7 seasons. Kobe finished top 5 in MVP voting for 4 straight years from 2010 to 2013 and averaged over 27 points a game for 3 of those seasons. Before his Achilles tear, Kobe was still Kobe, winning his 2nd championship and being a top 5 player in the league. In those 2010 finals, he averaged 28.6 points, 8 rebounds, and 3.9 assists. Through the 2010 through 2012 playoffs, Kobe did average 28 points. Kobe had the 9th most points based off the award point system, 13 points ahead of AD and right behind Dwight, but 4 years of top 5 MVP voting, arguably the best player in 2010, along with being good at both sides of the ball, nudged him slightly ahead. I really didn't think Kobe would make this list since he got injured so early in the decade, but this is a case where 4 seasons playing at the highest level was better than 10 seasons of solid play. At number 7 is Kobe's possible teammate once upon a time, Chris Paul. Chris Paul was the best point guard in the league for some time. He is a 3-time All-NBA first team, 2 All-NBA second team, 1 All-NBA third team selector, along with 6 first team all-defensive teams, and he led the league for assists in 2 years. He also led the league in steals for 4 years. Chris Paul, especially his time on the Clippers, was a point god that was a stingy defender. In the decade, he averaged 18.1 points and 9.6 assists and was part of the iconic Lob City. Even in the playoffs, Chris Paul averaged 20.2 points, 8 assists, 5.2 rebounds, and 2.2 steals for 9 playoffs. He had the game winner against the Spurs, but he has never been to the finals. Rondo was right. There have been injuries to key players that have prevented the Clippers from going further. Some of those were to Chris Paul himself, but CP3 typically has stepped it up. Paul also finished top 5 in MVP voting twice, but now he is one of those players that is kind of forgotten about, simply because he got older. Paul is higher than all the other players before him because he has been better for longer and consistently among the leaders for assists. Next up at number 6 is Mr. Triple-Double himself, Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook is a weird case because if you look at his per 10-year averages of 23.8 points, 8.7 assists, and 7.3 rebounds, all that looks amazing. He's been an MVP, a 2-time scoring champ, 2-time assist leader, averaged a triple-double for 3 seasons, which no one has done since the 60s, a ridiculous 162 win shares, which is the second highest on this list. But despite all of that, he only has 2 first-team All-NBA selections, typically losing out to players like Harden. Westbrook does have 5 second-team selections. All this makes Russ rank higher than Chris Paul just by the sheer magnitude of his historical accomplishments. He has 1 finals appearance with Durant and Harden, but in recent years has been unable to make it out of the first round. Without Durant in the playoffs, Russ is averaging 29.8 points, 9.5 assists, and 10.9 rebounds, but on 38.4% from the field. The issue which prevents Russ from going higher on this list is team success in both the regular season and the playoffs, which I will explain in a little bit. At number 5 is the
fun guy,
Kawhi Leonard. While Kawhi Leonard may not have an MVP to his name, and while his averages of 17.7 points and 6.3 rebounds in this decade pale in comparison to the others, Leonard has 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs, and 2 defensive player of the year awards. Even if you say that his finals MVP on the Spurs wasn't that impressive, nor was he the best player on the team, which you might have a valid point to, this year's playoff run was something special, hitting the first ever Game 7 game winner and winning a championship for a new team. Kawhi only holds 3 All-NBA selections to his name, but he also holds 5 All-Defensive selections. Pair that with 2 championships and even a single finals MVP, and he deserves to be here. However, because it's really only 3 great seasons, I can't put him higher than some of the other players. Although I highly value championships, Leonard has only had 3 All-Star seasons. I haven't really mentioned All-Star appearances because it's not as relevant when comparing stars to other stars, but in terms of longevity, Kawhi hasn't been Kawhi the whole decade. What he did in just 3 seasons is so impressive that he is 5th on this list. At number 4 is Dwight's former teammate, James Harden. Harden just barely beats out Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, and Kawhi. Not in terms of award points because he's actually lower than them in award points, but let's take a deeper look. James Harden has 5 All-NBA first team selections. He's been an MVP, a 2-time scoring champ, along with an assist leader. Keep in mind that although Harden has only won 1 MVP, he has always been in the conversation for MVP for years. Harden came in 2nd for MVP 3 other years in this decade. He also just averaged over 36 points a game, making him the 4th player in NBA history besides Wilt, Jordan, and Kobe to average over 35. Chris Paul has more award points based off the point system, but that's really because Chris Paul was a defensive beast with 7 all-defensive selections. But James Harden has more all-NBA first-team selections with 5. Chris Paul's best finish for MVP voting this decade was 3rd just once. Kawhi Leonard has not consistently been at this high of a level, not yet. Harden didn't even make an All-NBA team in 2016 when he averaged 29 points and 7.5 assists. Comparing that to Westbrook, and we see Harden and Westbrook have nearly identical stats. They both have that 1 finals appearance, both have been to the conference finals and lost to the Warriors, and while Russ might have not performed well recently in the playoffs, Harden has also had his down performances, but he has led the Rockets to better records. For instance, the Rockets Rockets had a 65-17 record in the 2017-2018 season, while the Thunder with Westbrook and Paul George had a 48-34 record. Even this last season, with multiple injuries to key players like Chris Paul and Clint Capella, the Rockets still had a better record. Westbrook without Kevin Durant has also failed to get out of the first round no matter who his supporting cast is, while Harden has run into the Warriors and lost. That's what pushes Harden slightly above, because he has consistently brought his team deeper in the playoffs and has just won more. These next three players though are all in a class of their own. At number 3 is a guy who has changed the game, Stephen Curry. He's averaged 23.5 points and 6.6 assists while shooting 43.6% from 3. He's one of only 2 people in this decade with 3 championships and 2 MVPs. Curry has 3 All-NBA first teams, 2 All-NBA second teams, and 1 All-NBA third team, along with a scoring title. One of those MVPs was the first ever unanimous MVP in NBA history, in which Curry became the first player to average over 30 points in under 35 minutes a game, shot 50, 45, 90, and made 402 3-pointers in a single season. He kept breaking the 3-point record, and now he holds 3 of the top 5 seasons of 3-pointers made in a single season. All this happened in the past decade, as Curry was drafted in 2009. He's led the league in steals, led the league in free throw percentage 4 times. He's also had fun with this. He's been in the NBA Finals 5 straight times and is the center of the 3-point revolution. Curry led the Warriors to the best record in NBA history at 73-9. He has become the greatest shooter in NBA history. Curry even has a case to be number 2, but his rise to stardom really happened in 2013, while the player at number 2 has been elite since 2010. And that player is Kevin Durant, the guy who hates coming in second.
Leave me alone!
This is where there is a huge gap in award points, jumping from 66 to 98. I think that Curry has had a bigger impact than Durant, but Durant has been a top 5 player in the world since 2010, when he averaged 30.1 points a game along with 7.6 rebounds. In fact, in this 10-year stretch, Durant has averaged a ridiculous 28 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 4.4 assists off 50% shooting from the field and 38.4% from 3. He has the highest scoring average on this list. He has 4 scoring titles. He's one of 2 people in this decade who have an MVP and a Finals MVP. You might not value Durant's championships as much, but even if you were to strip away all his championships and Finals MVP, Durant still would be ranked second award points wise. He has 6 All-NBA first team selections and 3 second team selections. The only season he didn't make an All-NBA team was the season he was injured. Durant's resume in just OKC was enough for him to make the top 5 on this list. And then at his time on the Warriors, where for one of the finals he averaged over 35 points, and he's number 2. But the best player in this decade is really a no-brainer: LeBron James. What's there to really say about him in these past 10 years? He's won 3 championships. He's the only player on this list to have 3 MVPs. He's also the only one to have 3 Finals MVPs, along with 9 All-NBA first team selections out of a possible 10. Over a 10-year span, LeBron has averaged 26.9 points, 7.6 assists, and 7.7 rebounds, giving him the 2nd highest points and 3rd highest assists. He made 8 straight finals, had a letdown in 2011 that led to a loss. He had his insane Game 6 in 2012 against the Celtics while facing elimination, scoring 45 points on 73% from the field. LeBron became the first player to average a triple-double in the finals in 2017, made history in 2016 coming back from down 3-1, averaging 29.7 points, 11.3 rebounds, 8.9 assists, 2.6 steals, and 2.3 blocks, beating a 73-9 Warriors. He even goated Draymond Green into the tech. he had the signature block. That's a lot. He was also a defensive beast in his years on Miami. LeBron has 4 first-team all-defensive selections from 2010 to 2013. Miami Heat LeBron was possibly the athletic prime of LeBron when we saw him jump over players, lead the Heat to 27 straight wins, and that all was within the last 10 years. There is no player in this decade that has done more than LeBron James. He was over 30 points higher than Kevin Durant in terms of awards, but even forgetting the point system, LeBron has been the best player in the NBA for years. More recently, he has been challenged for the throne, but he indisputably held the throne for a majority of this decade. And that is the top 10 players in this decade. But what do you think? Is there someone else more deserving? What's your top 10 list? The Excel with all their stats and awards is public for you to see. I also do have pages of notes for all the stuff these stats don't show, so if you want that to be public, let me know in the comments. Drop a like for all the greatness of these players. This video took a really long time to research all these players' careers, but if you like it, we can make this a series. If you stayed till this point of the video, you are seriously a real one. Comment greatness so I know you real. The Instagram shout out of the day goes to Isaac, and the all-day notification shout goes to Derek. Thanks for the all-day support. Make sure to bell for all the notifications, and if you're not a sub, hit that subscribe button, join the all-day community for more fire content, all-day support. It's your boy MJ. We out.
Okay, just hop in my spaceship now.